Hey folks, so it snowed big time. In the past 5 days, we've had a collective 1 meter of snow fall onto the ground here. I heard someone on our town council call it the Shaq and Kobe of winter weather events, which is really funny. Because it snowed so much here, I thought it would be a great opportunity to dye some yarn with snow. Now, this isn't my first time doing this, but it's my first time doing this on my own. Let's see how this goes. So, I'm not going to be dyeing a whole bunch of yarn today. In fact, I'm just dyeing a little bit of this Briggs& and Little Heritage yarn. This will actually be fun because I haven't weighed this yarn. Weighing my yarn normally helps me figure out how much dye I need to add to get specific shades. So I have no idea how this yarn will look at the end. It'll be fun to find out. I'm adding this yarn to some warm water and sprinkling some citric acid into the yarn bath. Citric acid helps bind the dye to the yarn, so I'm adding some in now. We're gonna let this sit for about 2 hours and then come back. Okay, so I'm back. It's been around 2 hours. Now I'm going to grab my yarn and stick it right into my dye pot here. So let's go outside. I'm all dressed up for the weather. I've got my snow shovel here. I'm gonna grab some snow and add it on top of my yarn here. Okay, wait, I didn't realize by doing this, I may have just brought the entire snowstorm into my house. But you know what? Whatever. It's fine. Everything is fine. Snow melts. I'm gonna grab some snow and really pack it into my dye pot here. And we're gonna fill this up all the way to the top. I'm kind of scared of how this is gonna melt. I don't want like a bunch of dye water overflowing in my house. But you know what? Whatever. It should be fine. Oh no. My socks are wet already. Now, to figure out some colors, I don't want to add a whole bunch of colors because I know the melting process is a gamble. If the snow melts nicely, I'll end up with a really cool rainbow yarn. If it melts not so nicely, I might just end up with a really ugly brown yarn. So I'm thinking I'll mix 2 out of the 3 primaries and see how that goes. This is where things get fun. Usually I have to measure my dye amounts precisely so that I can get the specific colors I want. But for this, we can basically go wild and add however much we want. So I'm basically just adding dye everywhere in the snow. And something I've never done before is mix warm and cool primaries. So I'm using this as an opportunity to do so by mixing cool blue and fuchsia with warm blue and red. Isn't that pretty? Now we're gonna have to do some waiting for the snow to melt. As the snow melts, the dye will melt with it into the yarn. Okay, so it's been about 2 hours since I added the dyes to the snow, and as you can see, the snow is slowly melting. I have a feeling that this is just gonna end up becoming a purple yarn by the looks of how the dyes are running into each other. But we're not gonna touch it, we're gonna let nature run its course and see what happens. It'll probably take a while for all of the snow to melt, so I'm gonna leave it overnight and we can take a look at it tomorrow morning. Okay, good morning, friends. As I predicted, the snow and the dye basically melted into a purple. There is a little bit of blue I see here at the top, which is kind of cool. I'm excited to see how that turns out in the final yarn. But now what we're gonna do is heat up this dye bath until the dye has been completely absorbed into the yarn and the water is clear. This will take a while just because of how much dye there is in this pot. So I'm gonna do this off camera and I'll be back with the finished dyed yarn. Okay folks, without further ado, here is my snow dyed yarn. Look at how gorgeous this is. Looking closer at it, you can really see the warm and cool variegation in the purples, It really reminds me of an amethyst, and I think it will punch beautifully. Speaking of which, you might be wondering what I'm going to be using my newly dyed yarn for. Well, I'm going to be using it for my next project. Not going to share any more spoilers, but you will see it in my next video. So make sure to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on that. And leave a comment if you found this video cool or interesting. Thanks for watching.